Hello, in this video we're going to use Google Maps and we're going to use it for educational purposes. So what you can do with Google Maps is it allows you to see an aerial view or a street view of just about anywhere you want to go in the world. It also allows you and the students to check out locations that maybe you're learning about in history, so historical locations, as well as maybe the setting of a book. So if a book is written and it has a real life location, you can actually go there to see what it looks like. Some locations have a back in time feature that allows you to reverse time and go back and look to see what the location looked like previously, which is great for maybe historical buildings, or maybe if a new building is being built, you can kind of see the progress of it being built. So let's check out some Google Maps. So to begin, you want to go to Google Maps, and this is what you should see. It should pull your location, and then up in the left corner, you start to type where you would like to go. So some ideas you could look at, again, locations that are in history, or you could look at just a favorite place you want to investigate, or you can look at the settings of different books. So let's start simple. And let's just type in a common location for me. So when you type it in, notice that there will be images here that people have already selected or already taken. So you can click on those and it will actually let you see images from these locations. So that's pretty neat too, to be able to see real life images from around that area. You can get quick facts, you can look at hotels, so things that you would do more on a personal level more than anything. But now what we can actually do is scroll in. And the more we scroll in, the more specifics we see. But it gets to the point to where when we scroll in so much, we can switch to the satellite view. And that will change us from a map to more looking like a real setting. This is what I call the aerial view. Once you scroll in so much, you'll start to see these little white dots, and that means that you can take it into the street view at that location. So we'll scroll in on there, and once we scroll in so much, it actually takes us into street view. So we can see exactly what it would look like for that particular, if you were standing in this location. So in addition of just moving my screen around and kind of getting that 360 view, I can scroll in and out to kind of take me from right within the mix to kind of out of it. So like I can see here, this is Flannery O'Connor's childhood home. So I can scroll in a little bit more and I'm able to see exactly what it looks like, and see there's even a monument there for that. So I'm able to see it from this view. In addition, I can keep scrolling around and I can get an arrow and move down the street, almost as if I'm walking down the street. I can even turn the corner. I'm at a four-way stop. I can keep moving. And I can keep going throughout. So it's kind of like being on the actual location. Again, I just use the scroll out button to take me back. And then it kind of it'll give me the names of different places, the roads, that kind of thing. And then I can just move around as I please, scroll out even more if I want to, and then move around. So like, oh, here's Juliet Gordon Lowe's birthplace. So maybe I want to locate that. So I want to scroll until I see a white dot, and that lets me know that I can move into street view there. And then I can just turn the corner here because this is where the view was. And then this is the Juliet Gordon Lowe birthplace. This is her house. So I can keep moving, and it's literally like you're walking down the street essentially. So I can come here, and then there is that location. So now let's try to do another location. But before we do so, this is what this is where you can go back in time. So by default, it's showing me what it looked like in 2007. I can actually move these different points, and it would show me what it looked like in 2012. It would show me what it looked like in 2014 and 2016, that kind of thing. Currently showing is 2017. So I could go back and change those to where now it's changing me to let me see what it looked like in 2007. Now, obviously, most things, some buildings are not going to change very much, but that might be a cool tool to use if you're wanting to see a building be constructed that wasn't constructed in 2007, and then all of a sudden it gets constructed over the years, or if there was a lot of renovations happening on a location, you could do so. And so if that is possible, it's not possible on all locations, but if it is possible, you'll see this little tab under here called Street View, and then you'll be able to move your mouse as to what location you would like to go on. So now let's change our location, and maybe we want to explore New Orleans. So now we're going to go to New Orleans. We can see photos here and just see photos that people have taken. Even some of these photos have 360 photos, so it will let you move around and see within the building itself. We can see the current temperature, we can see all the things here, but let's go into the map view really quick. So maybe I want to zoom in on the French Quarter, so I can just keep zooming and zooming and zooming. And again, the more you zoom, the deeper it takes you. There's Bourbon Street. Maybe we want to go on the Bourbon Street, so we can just keep zooming in, and then switch to the satellite view. Keep zooming in, and then it took me into the street view, and now we are on the infamous Bourbon Street. And so you can see and look around, and you say, wow, I didn't realize that those roads were so narrow. And then you can keep moving, and you're able to look at the different crosswalks. You're able to move around, and it is literally just like you are almost there. And again, this one allows for a street view, so you can change it to where, what did this place look like at 2007? I choose this view, and it will show a difference. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference. They changed the flags, that kind of thing. You can see the differences there as things move around. So how could I use this in my class? Let's pretend that your students are reading Dracula, and we want to look at Dracula's Castle. So we can go type in just Brans Castle. We can see images. Here it is. We can scroll in, and then this will give us, once we get a dot, that will allow us to go in to the street view. And then we can move around. And I'm not sure if it's going to let us get right up on the castle because it is kind of up on a hill. But notice it's not really out completely in the wilderness like we're used to thinking. There's actually a little village around here. So we can scroll around and see what it looks like around that location. And again, if we get lost, we can always scroll out a little bit, and that will let us get back to kind of where we are. I can keep scrolling out. There's Brans Castle. And here's all the things around it. There's a supermarket not that very far away from the castle. So it does kind of give you some perspective there. Notice at the castle, there isn't a street, though, located right up to the castle. So it's kind of difficult to get that close. Now, if you want to, you can click on this, and it will allow you to see images here of that particular castle, and then you can see images of people who have actually been inside. What's great too is if you get lost, you can kind of see this person, and that will kind of give you perspective as to where you are as well if you start moving too far away. So now let's take a trip to Italy. So here we are. We can see the buildings here, but we can scroll in. And again, the more we scroll in, the closer we get. So let's take a look. Oh, and it took us into Street View. Look how close these buildings are. Is that amazing or what? And so we can go and we can see out by the docks. We can see the roadways. We can see how close this is where they're parking their boats. And you can see it's literally like a river or a water-based street. And I can scroll back out, and then I can move around different places to be able to see these different locations. And again, when you scroll in, if you get a dot, that's going to let you go into Street View. So now I'm in Street View. Look how close all of these buildings are. And so we can move out of here. And those are like little apartments, and they're so close together. And so we can move out of this. And you're able to see how people are literally using their boats just to drive through the different channels right here. So let's see if we can scroll in and get a really close view of this. So here's a great one where you see there's like a cafe right here. And literally there's boats parked here, and you can see the channel right here that's just going in through there. So you would just float your little boat right through there. So now let's check out, and again, this was in Street View 2013, but there isn't the option to change, so not all locations have the back in time. So now let's go and check out some historical areas. We're at the Parthenon right now, so we can scroll in, and let's see what we can see through this location. We see the iconic area here. We see all of the different backdrops here. So we can go in. And maybe, I don't think it will, but it might give us a white dot to be able to see and go into the street view for that. Maybe not. But it also lets you see just in reference, like this is the historical area, but you see not very far from the historical area are buildings. So like here's the Athens University Museum. So not too far from where the actual ancient area is. So now let's get a room and check out the Pantheon. You can see it right here, but if we scroll in, we'll get a white dot, and that allows us to move forward, and we can see it's right here on our left. We're able to see what it looks like. We're able to just keep moving down the street and get to the front of the building, and then we can see it from the side. And look how close the other buildings are. So I personally thought it was kind of out there in the wilderness, but it's not. Here it is right here. And then right next to more modern buildings. It's all right here. So again, really gives you perspective as to what the building and the location around it looks like. So lastly, let's go to King's Cross Station, which you know is very popular in the Harry Potter series. So here it is. We can scroll in, and it will actually let us see. We'll get to a dot. So let's find us one of the white dots that will let us go into Street View. So we can see that there's a Harry Potter shop actually at the King's Cross, and if we click on it, it will show us images from there. So we can see that there is a little Harry Potter shop right within the King's Crossing. So let's go back to the actual King's Crossing, and we can come in, scroll in, and we should get a white dot, so we can scroll into that white dot, let us go into Street View. And did you know that this is actually a gymnasium? See, there's a gymnasium right here that is right across the street from King's Cross, which is right here. This is where King's Cross is. So you can move around and see the different buildings and walk around. And again, you could look at locations from history, locations of places you just want to go, or locations from books. So in addition to using Google Maps to just view locations, you can actually use Google My Maps, which allows you to create your own map and pin the locations that you would like for your students or the students would like for themselves or their colleagues to visit. You can create a driving or walking route from those different pins, and you can also share or view this map with others. So let's try creating a My Map. So in this case, we're going to go to Google My Maps. You can just Google it, and that will take you to that location. Then you want to make sure that you're logged into your Google account. From there, you're able to create a new map, and then it will give you the option of naming your map. as well as a description. So this might be where you're putting in, specific locations for settings for different books or historical locations or, a tour around a certain area in the United States or whatever you want to be creating your map for. And then you just start to come in. And you can either create your own pins or you can use pins that have already been created. So like my pin is about Savannah, Georgia. Or my map is about Savannah, Georgia. So I'm going to scroll in and I'm going to start finding different locations. So maybe I'm doing kind of this little walking tour of Savannah of neat places I think that people should visit. So maybe I want my first stop to be the old pink house. So I can scroll in and I can either make my own pin if I wanted to and add my own marker, but that's not really necessary because there's already a marker for the old pink house. So I can click on it and choose to add it to my map and it will be added there. I can also choose to edit this map and I can choose little icons to associate it to. So like this is actually a restaurant. So I could choose a restaurant icon if I wanted to, and I could also color code it if I want to, which might be appropriate, especially if you're adding a lot of different maps or a lot of different pins. So then maybe I come through and maybe I find another location I would like for the students to review, or I would like for people who are looking at my map to travel to. Another thing you can add, and might be great to add, especially if you're doing a tour, is public parking. So this one I pinned to public parking, which is right near the old pink house, so that people can, using my map, be able to locate those. So then I can just carry on finding the different locations I would like and adding them to my map as needed. Now, if you choose to make your own point, which you can do so here by adding a marker, it also allows you to add a description if you want to, and you can add your own image. So here you could, if you have your own photo, if you actually went there and took your own photo, or you could Google image search and find an image of it there as well. So maybe in this case, I added an image, which might be cool if the students are creating their own historical markers of different famous people's birthplaces or that kind of thing. They might could add in an image of that particular historical person. So we can add that in as well. So these are all my different public locations that I've added. Another neat thing that you can do if you're interested is to measure how far these are apart. So there's this measuring distances. So maybe if I'm having them to go from, maybe they're going through from the Andrew Lowe house all the way to the Flannery O'Connor house, that's 380 feet. So that kind of gives you perspective as to how far we're talking. We can measure something further if we want to. Maybe I'm interested in knowing how far the Sorrel Weed House is from the Flannery O'Connor, and that's a little over 1,000 feet. So you can see how far they are away from each other. Now we could do this on a larger scale as well. So maybe I'm interested in knowing how far Savannah is, the city of Savannah, to Bonaventure Cemetery, which is about 3 miles. Or maybe if I'm interested in knowing how far it is from Tybee Island, we're looking at about 15 miles. So you can use that to help students measure the distances between different locations. In addition, we can actually use a draw a line feature to add a driving route or a walking route, especially if people are actually going to go to these locations. So we have a driving route. Maybe we're parking here and we want to add a route to the location, to the restaurant that we're going to first. So there's the driving route there. So we're going to tell them to drive down Abercorn and then hit Bryan. And that's going to take us to the old pink house. Maybe next, our next location is going to be so we want to draw a line from point B to maybe we're going to the Telfair Museum. So we're figuring out, and with Savannah you have to be careful because there's a lot of one-way streets. So maybe it's best to hit up East Bay and then go down this way, and you can move it around to get to the location there. So maybe that's the route we're going to take to get to the Telfair Museum. And then we can scroll on out, find our next point, come and add a driving route, and maybe from here we're going to go to the right square. So maybe that's our next location. And so again, you can add in a driving route so that students can use this, especially if they actually end up going to these locations. you can find the closest driving route around to different places. So now you can preview this. So you can go to the preview mode and they'll be able to see these are our locations. Keep in mind that I can edit this layer in a second if I want to. Those are the driving locations from the different point A's to point B's. I can move it into the street view so that they can see it maybe a little bit better to see what the roads and whatnot they're taking are. And again, this doesn't have to be just a real life perspective. You could have it to where they're researching historical locations and they're having to add a walking route as to where the soldiers would have walked from this point to this point, or where people would have moved from this point to this point on this particular journey, that kind of thing. So it can be used in historical context as well. So then I can go back to edit mode and name my layer if I want to. And what you could do is if you are making a really sophisticated map, you could make different layers. So layers are different views, basically. So you could add a layer of locations, while you could add a layer of restaurants, while you could add a layer of museums, or you could add a layer of hotels, to where if they only wanted to look at the hotels, they could click on the hotel layer and only see the hotel pins. They could only click on the location pins and only see the locations, or only click on the food pins and see the food pins. So again, that's more of a sophisticated version if you needed to do so with that. So then we're ready to share it. So we'll choose share. We want to change our privacy settings. So we want to change it to where maybe it's available to anyone on the internet, but they can view it. So in that case, anyone can get to it with this link. You would give them this link. Anyone can view the particular map. So let's see what it looks like. So I'm logged out of all of my different accounts and I've just went to the link that I provided, and this is what we see. So we see the location on the trip. We see these different pieces. I can click on them. They would give me any information. Notice if I made my own pin, it gave me my picture and my information. So again, that could be used for more of a project where the students are supposed to make these locations, type about, add a summary as to why this location is important, and add an image. So if you use the default ones, usually it'll pull in pictures or whatnot that were by default if you use the default pins. But if you create your own pin, you can create what you would like there. So again, they're not able to really edit anything at this point. They're just able to look at the different locations and see the different route. So another option is to log back in and choose share, but in this case, we're going to change it to where anyone on the internet can edit it. And basically what this will do is allow anyone with the link to be able to add their own pins. So basically you're able to collaborate in this regard. So now in this case, anyone would be able to go to the link. They do have to log into their Google account. They can come in and they can actually edit and add their own pins. So they're able to choose edit, and then they can go about and add their own pins if they would like to. And then save them and they'll be added to your different locations. So that is a way that you can collaborate creating a trip, or perhaps marking different historic locations. So that's a summary of how to use Google Maps in terms of viewing, and then also how to use My Maps in Google Maps to create your own map.